A couple of years ago, the M.a.s.k sent me some of their figures in exchange for an honest review, and I of course obliged, and in my video I said that while they were very nice figures, there was something slightly off about them which, in my opinion, meant they couldn't really fit in with a classic Kenner collection. Now, I'm not suggesting for a minute that they listened to what I had to say and changed their manufacturing process, but changed it they have. Now, Graham from the M.a.s.k has very kindly sent me the latest batch of figures to review, so when we come back, we'll find out if we can add the M.a.s.k to the list of custom makers showing Hasbro how it should be done. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, and here we are with a selection of new figures from the M.a.s.k, and before you jump in the comments and start screaming that they're all just repaints, let me explain this in very simple terms. These figures are injection molded, which is the same technique used by Kenner over 40 years ago, and these steel molds cost thousands of dollars to make. And for boutique companies like M.a.s.k, it would be financially irresponsible to create a mold to be used for only one figure, and would quickly lead to the demise of the business. It really is that simple. So with that out the way, let's take a look at these new figures. First up, we have three variations of the Imperial Commander figure. In white, we have the ISB officer, in green we have the Imperial Commander, and finally in dark grey we have the Imperial General. Now there's no question that these figures have been based on the original Kenner Imperial Commander. While the overall sculpt looks very similar, the details on the Kenner version are much sharper. So for example, the rank insignias on the Kenner version are sculpted and painted, while the M.a.s.k have simply used a decal. There's also more detailing on the belt buckle from Kenner, but once again, this was probably done to keep costs at a minimum, because in case you missed what I said at the beginning of the video, the M.a.s.k is a boutique company that simply doesn't have the resources of companies the size of Hasbro. All three figures come with a newly designed blaster that not only looks good, it actually fits into the hands perfectly. Now before we move on to the next figures, I'd like to take a moment to talk about what changed between the first set of figures I reviewed and these new ones. One of my initial complaints was that the first set of figures had all been cast in white plastic and were painted, and as such, when handling the figures, they just didn't feel right. I'll be honest, it's really difficult to articulate what I'm getting at, but when handling these figures alongside a Kenner figure, the difference is quite noticeable. But now, when handling one of the new figures with one of the older figures, the change is like night and day, and these new figures do feel like classic figures that Kenner made. Now, when inspecting the peg holes of these figures, it would appear that they too have been cast in white plastic and then painted, but this time they really do feel correct. I've no idea what changed in the manufacturing process, but whatever it is, it absolutely works. The joints on these figures are stiff without being difficult to move, and this allows you to pose the figures without the fear of them having flappy arm syndrome. And just to quickly return to the subject of paint, the paint has been applied flawlessly, and this is especially noticeable on the faces. Now moving on to the next figure, the Imperial Scanning Crew. At first glance, I thought this was the fourth repaint of the Imperial Commander, but a closer look shows that the torso and the legs are unique to this figure. In addition to the sculpted holster, we also get the covering for the zipper of the jumpsuit, as well as a different blaster. Of the four Imperials on offer, this one is definitely my favourite due to its unique features. And now we have a couple of patrons from the Cantina. Now thankfully included with the figures was this card showing all the figures in the line, because without it I would have no idea who they were. Stuck away in a corner of the Cantina were M.a.s.k and K. Apparently M.a.s.k also appears in Jabba's palace in Return of the Jedi, but I'm not getting my magnifying glass out to confirm this. Yes, the bodies of these figures are once again the same as the Imperial Commanders, but with the addition of gloves. I understand there will be complaints that these two figures are too similar, but the fact is that these are nothing more than background characters, and I'm quite sure that on set back in 1976, the actors probably wore identical costumes on the set of the movie. While the head sculpts are not as impressive as the human heads on the Imperial figures, they're perfectly acceptable for a couple of figures that will probably be stuck in the back of a Cantina playset. It is worth pointing out that both figures come with different weapons. Finally, we have what I would consider the pick of the bunch, the Rebel ground crew. Now obviously the upper body is the same as the Imperial scanning crew, but he comes with a set of unique cargo pants, and the head of course is unique to this figure. As with the Imperial figures, the decals have been applied perfectly, which really does add to the look of these figures. Now there is an additional accessory available with this figure, which is a cardboard vehicle that you assemble yourself. It does involve a bit of cutting and probably gluing, so this is something I'll take care of in due course, because knowing me, I'll make a complete mess of it and I really don't want to make a fool of myself on camera. As I said at the start of this video, I'm quite sure my constructive criticism had nothing to do with the production changes, but whatever prompted these changes, let me be the first to say that the improvements are extremely welcomed, and I'm proud to add the name M.a.s.k to the group of custom makers showing Hasbro how it really should be done. Not only am I impressed with these figures, I am thrilled for the M.a.s.k, as more companies making quality figures in the style of classic Kenner can only benefit us all. I'd like to thank Graham at the M.a.s.k for giving me the chance to look at these figures, and if you'd like to get your hands on some, I've left a link in the description to their website. Please feel free to go ahead, check them out, and if you like what you see, don't be shy, give them a try.